Hey guys, Luke here, and finally, not doing a video on the grand final. I know it's grand final week, Raiders, Roosters, we're all excited, but the Dally M medal is here tonight, and I thought I'd go ahead and give my predictions on what's going to happen, go through all the individual positions, go through the coach, rookie of the year, interchange player of the year, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, let's get into it. Now going into the season, I think a lot of people would have said either Callum Ponga or James Tedesco would win the Dally M medal. Now 50% of those people would be right because James Tedesco looks to be odds-on favourite. In terms of rookie of the year, a lot of people are saying like your Zach Lomaxes, the Harris Tavita from the Warriors, a few guys like that, Bronson Jerry. I think Bronson Jerry is your best bet out of all of them. Anyways, you've got a lot of positions to go through. Let's not waste any more time. Let's start off with fullback. So the nominees for fullback of the year are James Tedesco from the Roosters, Charles Nicole Klodstad from the Raiders, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck from the Warriors, Clinton Gutherson from the Eels, and Jerome Hughes from the Storm. Now for me, this one, it's a little bit interesting. I think James Tedesco is going to win this one quite easily. What I'm surprised is that Jerome Hughes is listed at fullback. When you think of, like, when I think of the Storm, I think of Papenhuyzen as a fullback. Even though Jerome Hughes probably played statistically more games at fullback. I mean, he finished the year a halfback. So I know that this is just how they've sort of nominated them. It's not really that big of a deal, especially considering I think Tedesco is going to win this easy, considering he's going to win the Dally M in my opinion. So he's obviously going to win fullback of the year. In terms of who I'd say number two, like if you take Tedesco out, I think you'd have to go to TUIVASA-SHECK. I know Nicole Klodstad is a bit of the flavour of the month at the moment with the Raiders making the grand final, but TUIVASA-SHECK is probably quite underrated because he plays the Warriors, but without them, they're already not that good. So without him, I don't even want to see what the Warriors would be like. Now onto the winger of the year. Here are the nominees. We have Blake Ferguson from the Eels, Daniel Tupou from the Roosters, Edric Lee from the Knights, Josh Adokar from the Storm, and Ken Momalo from the Warriors. I'm shocked. Where is Sivo, honestly? I mean, even in terms of Parramatta wingers, I think Sivo's had a better year than Ferguson. Now, Ferguson started off the year very, very strong, but he was actually out for big parts of the season. Sivo was there the whole season. He was amazing. I actually thought he would be winger of the year, to be honest with you. I don't think he'll get rookie of the year. We'll talk about that later, but I think he was the best winger of the year. It's quite strange, some of these selections, like Edric Lee. How's Edric Lee in there? I don't get that one, but if I'm going to pick a winner out of these guys, I'll probably go... Oh, I think they'll probably go Blake Ferguson. I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Tupou wins. He's been very consistent. It's funny to think he played Origin like a fair while ago now, but he's definitely getting back up to that level. Blake Ferguson, I'd say, overall was, you know, at his highest, he was the best player. Even Momalo has been quite good. Maybe Momalo might be a good option, but I think I might go with... I'll just go with Blake Ferguson because I think that's who they'll pick. Now moving on to Centre of the Year. Here are the nominees. We have Brian Kelly from the Titans, Isan Masters from the West Tigers, Jared Croker from the Raiders, Latrell Mitchell from the Roosters, and Will Hopewadi from the Bulldogs. Now, I've got to be honest with you, some of these are quite puzzling. I mean, Masters, I haven't even really seen Tigers fans who think he's had a good season. I saw a lot of people calling for him to be dropped. Brian Kelly at the Titans, I mean, he was okay for Titan standards, but I wouldn't say he was a centre of the year. Will Hopewadi, I'm a Bulldogs supporter. There's some bias there. He's had a good season. Is centre of the year season? Definitely not. I think it really comes down to Jared Croker and Latrell Mitchell, and even then, I think Latrell Mitchell wins it every day of the week. I think he's had a really, really good season. He got dropped from Origin, obviously, but in terms of his club football, very, very good. Weird that Joey Manu wasn't nominated, but by the looks of things, they can only seem to nominate one player per club just based off the Sivo Ferguson thing. So based off that, that's why it sort of makes me think Ferguson's going to win the winger, and also why Latrell Mitchell, actually not why, but Latrell Mitchell just is the best centre at the moment. But yeah, some of the nominees, Bronson Jerry could have probably got nominated, maybe even like Josh Morris, a few of those sort of guys, but nope. Now we move on to 5'8" of the year. Here are the nominees. We have Benji Marshall from the Tigers, Cameron Munster from the Storm, Luke Keary from the Roosters, Cody Walker from the Rabbitohs, and Jack Whiten from the Raiders. Now this one I think is actually quite highly contested. Munster at the Storm won the minor premiership by heaps, so he's had a pretty good year. Luke Keary, absolutely outstanding, but he's sort of been in and out of the side due to injuries, due to head knocks and that, but when he's played, he's been the best player by far, in my opinion. And Cody Walker had a super strong start to the year, probably the form 5'8", maybe even more so than Luke Keary. They're right up there. They were very, like, they were right up there. They're matching each other. Whoever you pick, there's no real Sort of, I don't think you can really complain about it. I mean, even guys like Whiten, they've taken their team to the grand final. I think he's had a pretty good year. But yeah, Munster, Keary, Walker. Don't even know who was the last 5'8" there. Let me have a look for a sec. Benji Marshall. Benji, it's a credit to Benji that, you know, they've got him back into contention for 5'8" of the year, but I definitely don't think he was 5'8" of the year. If I had to make a decision, I'm going to say Luke Keary. Just Luke Keary, he was such a good player. Like, at his peak, I think he was better than all the others. It just comes down to whether they look at his injuries or whatnot. So, I mean, if I wouldn't be surprised if they pick Munster, but for me, Luke Keary is your 5'8" of the year. Now we move on to halfback of the year. The nominees are Adam Reynolds from the Rabbitohs, Chad Townsend from the Sharks, Daly Cherry Evans from the Sea Eagles, Mitchell Pearce from the Knights, and Mitchell Moses from the Parramatta Eels. Now this one is also another one I'm not sure exactly where they'll go, because no one's really been outstanding in terms of halfback. Some people have had purple patches and played quite well at different times throughout the year, but in terms of a full consistent year, no one's really put it together. You'll probably find the person who's done it the most is probably Mitchell Moses or Cherry Evans. However, Mitchell Pearce was good at times. He's very, very good at times. Adam Reynolds was kind of consistently kind of average, I guess. Chad Townsend, I mean, the Sharks didn't really go that well. I don't really know why he's nominated. But I honestly think it comes down to Mitchell Moses or Mitchell Pearce. The media is in love with Mitchell Pearce, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get their wish and get him halfback of the year. However, I think they'll give it to... Well, I think they should give it to Mitchell Moses. What he's done at the Eels, I think, is pretty good. And this is from someone, I wouldn't consider myself a Mitchell Moses hater, but I've never particularly rated Mitchell Moses. But this year, he has been very, very good for the Eels. Finally sort of living up to his potential a bit. So, yeah, I'd give it to Mitchell Moses. So, halfback of the year, Mitchell Moses, possibly. Now we move on to prop of the year. Here are the nominees. David Clemmer from the Knights, Josh Papali from the Raiders, Paul Vaughan from the Dragons, Takiaho from the Roosters, and Payne Haas from the Broncos. Now, for this one, I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Payne Haas won. However, I think they're going to save him for Rookie of the Year. David Clemmer had an okay season, but the Knights as a whole did not perform very well. Josh Papali is a bit of the flavour of the month at the moment. However, I feel like he has been the best prop this year, even in terms of origin and stuff. I don't know if they take that into account, but I just think he's had a phenomenal season from start to finish. But, I mean, Paul Vaughan has been quite good in a bad Dragons team. Takiaho is always good for the Roosters. This is kind of like the 5'8". You can't really go wrong with him. Payne Haas really carried the Broncos, and he's only, 18, 19. Made his Origin debut. He had a very, very good year. But I think write him off this one because he's going to get Rookie of the Year. But yeah, Josh Rapali, I'm going to pick him for Prop of the Year. Now we move on to Hooker of the Year. Here are the nominees. Cameron McInnes from the Dragons, Cameron Smith from the Melbourne Storm, Damien Cook from the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Josh Hodgson from the Raiders, Robbie Farah from the Tigers. Straight up, I'm just going to say Robbie Farah, it seems to be the odd one out there. Maybe they just came down to it and went, we don't really have anyone else. It must have been the case, because I'm not sure why he would be there. But, I mean, between Hodgson, Cook, and Cameron Smith, I think you can't really go wrong there. Even McInnes is year in, year out for the Dragons is very, very good in turns. But I feel like he's just that little bit next level down compared to the other three. Actually, probably another few levels down. But he is a very, very good player. But this year, I think it has to get a Damien Cook, in my opinion. I know Cameron Smith led the Storm yet again. Realistically, he probably is the best player right now. Probably had the best season, but he's not going to get the credit he probably deserves because we all expect it from Cameron Smith. Damien Cook, somewhat just come out of nowhere the last few years. What a player, though. He had a phenomenal season. I know his final series wasn't the best, but overall, I still think he had the best season out of all hookers. Josh Hodgson is ever so consistent as well. He's sort of another one. Cameron Smith, he doesn't make the flashy plays like Damien Cook, so maybe he doesn't get talked about as much, but he's definitely right up there. But I think for 2019, Damien Cook is your Hooker of the Year. Hooker is over and done with. Now we move on to second rowers. Here are your nominees. We have John Bateman from the Raiders, Kenny Bromwich from the Storm, Manu Ma'u from the Eels, Ryan Madison from the Tigers, and Sam Burgess from the Rabbitohs. Now, I don't think Sam Burgess should win this one. He is a very, very good player, but I don't think he's been second rower of the year. Ryan Madison, I think, is a dark horse. I think he's been very, very good. I know people have soured on him a little bit with how he's handled this Tiger stuff after the season's finished, but in terms of the actual season himself, very, very good. John Bateman, though, I think is a clear standout. I mean, he's the people's favourite at the moment. He's such a good player. He just does everything right, and he's not even that big of a second rower. I will say, though, Kenny Bromwich has really stepped up this year. Manu Ma'u had a great farewell year. It's nice to see Manu Ma'u get recognised, considering he is leaving to go to the Super League. I believe he's going to Hull. So his last year at the Eels, I feel like there probably could have been some other second rows nominated. I won't bother mentioning because there's actually quite a lot of good second rows going around. But in terms of this lot, I'm going to say John Bateman for second row of the year. He just had a phenomenal season. Now we move on to lock of the year. Now, I talked briefly about 5'8" being the most hotly contested position. I was wrong. Lock definitely is. I don't know who we're going to pick, but let's take you through the nominees. We have Cameron Murray from the Rabbitohs, Dale Finucane from the Storm, Jake Trbojevic from the Sea Eagles, Jason Taumalolo from the Cowboys, and Paul Gallen from the Sharks. Now, I think the easy one is to say Jason Taumalolo every year. Like, overall, I was just saying Cameron Smith was probably the best player. Jason Taumalolo, he could be number 1, he could be number 2. He's, like, at his best ability, he's the best lock. But in terms of the best player this season, this is what we're talking about. Who had the best year? Jason Taumalolo was injured for quite a bit. The Cowboys didn't do very good. I'm just going to rule him out. Like I said, overall, I think he is the best player, but it seems weird to rule him out for Lock of the Year. If he gets it, I have no complaints. But in my opinion, this award, it really does come down to 2 players, Cameron Murray and Jake Trbojevic. Both had fantastic seasons. Both had quite different seasons. Manly overachieved, and I think it was largely due to Jake Trbojevic. He was very, very good. He's so good. He's another one of those players who just performs week in, week out, year after year. So good. I think if every team had a Jake Trbojevic, like, he'd be their fan favourite. I think he's one of Manly's fans' favourites for sure. But Cameron Murray, just another one who sort of come out of nowhere. I knew there was a bit of hype about him. Didn't think he'd be this good. I picked him in my Supercoach at the start of the year. He was kind of pricey for what he had offered previously, but there was just so much hype on him. I thought, yep, got to put him in there, and straight away he performed, and he ended up being one of New South Wales' best, one of the Rabbitohs' best. Couldn't get them to the grand final, couldn't get them a premiership. It was a bit quiet in the finals, but overall, fantastic season. Do you want to go Cameron Murray or Jake Trbojevic? I think I'm going to go Cameron Murray for this one. So that's all the starting positions over and done with. Now let's move on to the interchange. Here are your nominees. Braden Hamlin-Uele from the Sharks, Brandon Smith from the Storm, Francis Molo from the Cowboys, Manisi Fayanu from the Sea Eagles, Regan Campbell-Gillard from the Panthers. Now looking at this one, I'm a bit confused. Like, Campbell-Gillard got dropped, and I mean, he's been discarded from the Panthers essentially, but he finds himself nominated after he won the award a few years ago. Hamlin-Uele was pretty good for patches for the Sharks. Fayanu has been outstanding, but Brandon Smith is just so good. Now, if you take out Brandon Smith, I think Fayanu wins this, but Brandon Smith is definitely there. What a player. I think you got to go Brandon Smith. He's just so good. He's so consistent. He's so solid every week, and he can play hooker. He can play in the forwards. He's so versatile as well. He's the perfect utility player, and that's why Brandon Smith deserves to get Interchange Player of the Year. So that's all the positional awards over and done with. Now it's time to talk about Rookie of the Year. Here are your nominees. Bronson Xerri from the Sharks, Micah Sevo from the Eels, Ryan Papenhuyzen from the Storm, Britton Nakora from the Sharks, and Payne Haas from the Broncos. Now, this one for me is another highly contested award. Sevo has been outstanding. Even Bronson Xerri has been very good. I talked about him being unlucky to not get nominated for Centre of the Year, especially with who did actually get nominated. Papenhuyzen, outstanding for the Storm. Did find himself sort of in and out of the starting side, but overall, a very good season from him. Nakora, at the start of the year, I said he was a lock for Rookie of the Year. Doesn't seem to be the case because Payne Haas exists. Payne Haas has been outstanding. He's just someone who, you throw him into any year and he's going to win Rookie of the Year. He's just been that good. He's not the standard. He's that good. And I think David Fafita was also eligible. So I think that definitely sort of confirms the whole one player per side as to how Sevo didn't get nominated for Winger of the Year. But yeah, Payne Haas, what a player. Made his State of Origin debut as a rookie, as you can tell. Seeing he's nominated as Rookie of the Year, and I think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. I think there's no one who can really question it too much. I know that people will and say like Sevo should get it or Papenhuyzen or someone, but yeah, Payne Haas, it's an easy one for me. Payne Haas, Rookie of the Year. So Rookie of the Year is over and done with. Now we move on to Coach of the Year. Here are your nominees. Brad Arthur from the Eels, Craig Bellamy from the Melbourne Storm, Des Hasler from the Sea Eagles, Ricky Stewart from the Canberra Raiders, and Trent Robinson from the Roosters. Now this one you can go a few different ways. You can look at it as, you know, who sort of took their team further than what they should have. You look at the likes of Brad Arthur and Des Hasler. Arthur took him from wooden spoon and got them into the 8. Des Hasler, probably unlucky with injuries. He probably could have got his side into the preliminary finals. Instead, he got them into the second round of the finals, which was definitely overachieving in my opinion. Ricky Stewart, I picked the Raiders to come last. I mean, it was a stupid one in hindsight, but he took a side that didn't really have too much experience. Their spine was very weak going into the season. You had White, who never played, really, at 5'8". Caesar wasn't very good. Nicole Klodstad was an unknown, and he's taken this side of kind of unknowns and taken them to the grand final, but not to the grand final. It wasn't like a lucky one. He took them to the top 4, got some big wins throughout the season. A very, very good season from Ricky Stewart. Then you have Bellamy and Trent Robinson, who just year after year are so good. For me, any one of these, apart from Brad Arthur, I wouldn't give it to Brad Arthur. But any of the other 4, I could easily, whoever gets it, I'm totally happy with. If I had to make a decision right now, I'm kind of thinking Ricky Stewart, because not only has he sort of overachieved, I think, with the roster, but he's got them to the grand final. So there you go, Ricky Stewart, Coach of the Year for me. Now there's some other awards. I'm not going to fully go through it because I don't really know too much about it. We'll start off with the captains. Just based off all the people who are nominated, I've got to give it to Cameron Smith. I mean, he led his team to another minor premiership. And he led it like big time. It was definitely him leading the charge. It wasn't like Cordner, where, you know, Cordner's sort of injured and, you know, other players can sort of carry the team. Cameron Smith is the Melbourne Storm, and that's why he's my captain of the year. We also have the women's one. I'll just look at the nominees. There's only 4 nominees. I don't really know too much about the women's game. I know the Dragons playing the Broncos in the final, and I'm pretty sure Jess Surges has been killing it this year. And she's nominated, so I'm going to go with her from the Dragons, Jess Surges, for Female Player of the Year. So I've done all the awards. The last one that I haven't done is the actual Dally M winner itself. Now, when the voting went behind closed doors, I'm pretty sure Mitchell Pearce was leading the charge. You can see it's on the screen right now, but I'm pretty sure it was Mitchell Pearce. I don't think he's going to win the Dally M medal. Just Knight sort of fell off too much in the back end of the season. James Tedesco is the favourite, and I think he's a favourite for a reason. I think he's been the best player. Maybe guys like Mitchell Moses or something could sneak up there, just because if Parramatta get points, he's going to poll 3 points. But yeah, Tedesco could be sharing it with guys like Luke Keary and that. But I just think Tedesco, definitely the best player of the year. Whether he gets the award or not, I think he's still been the best player this year. Anyway, guys, leave in the comment section below, who do you think is going to win the Dally M medal, and who else is going to win all those other positional awards? Rightio, guys, that's where I'm going to end the video. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke on YT. My Facebook page is in the description below as well. It's Mr. Luke. Just search it up. Been posting on that a little bit. But yeah, Dally M over and done with. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully my tip of James Tedesco comes up trumps. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.